Good evening. It is 7 o'clock and this is the Warrant Committee's meeting. We have a quorum present. So we'll start with a roll call, I guess. Everybody's here, so except Brent Nelson, who I'm sorry, Peter Michelson is not here. And he's unfortunately got a bad case of the flu, so he won't be coming. But everyone else is here, so why don't we just start saying present?
Nelson present. Ed Vizzola present. Bob Swanee present.
Steve Callahan present.
Pete Saladino present.
Ashley Ledoux present. Jill Raptor present. William Pugh present.
Okay, great. So we will start our warrant committee meeting. This meeting is being recorded. It is made available to the public. If anyone is, can you tell if anyone's online listening?
There's not.
Oh, there's nobody online yet? Okay. Okay, well, I was gonna ask if anybody's online to let us know if they can hear us, but, oh, okay. There's somebody in the back who said they can hear us. That's good. All right, excellent. So, the first order of our agenda is the approval of the October 8th minutes. And Emily drafted those, did an unbelievable job, I thought, given the quality of the recording that she had to deal with, which was not great. It was sort of, we had another case like this, I think, maybe a few months ago. But hopefully now we won't have that problem with this new technology, so.
Not just the recording, but the amount of information that was covered in the
Yeah.
meeting, substantial. So,
Yeah,
nice job.
yeah. So are there any comments, questions on those minutes?
We'll move to approve the minutes of October 8th as
Okay.
submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, our next meeting is on December 10th. Brent has graciously agreed to be the minute taker for this meeting and swap his responsibility with Pete Michelson for the December 10th meeting.
Okay.
And then on December 10th, we're going to finalize our guidance and get it out to the all the departments. And then Brent, that's the meeting where we plan on going through all the capital budgets, the December 10th meeting. Hopefully that you'll be done with all your work by then. So we have a number of things on the agenda tonight, talking about there's a free cash analysis, the final one. There's some review of some income and expense items that are part of that guidance, health insurance, pension, OPEB, and investment income. And then we'll talk a little bit about the update to the financial policies, get some updates from the school building committee and the capital budget committee, and talk about potential warrant articles, and then, deal with update items. But I thought since George is with us tonight, that we would start with her topic first, so she doesn't have to wait around too long. And that is the interest income. Is that topic. Let's see if I can share my screen there. Stop sharing, I guess. Let's see. There we go. Oops, that's the one. Sorry. Give me a minute here. Yeah, this is it. So you would have gotten a printout of this in your handouts, but basically this spreadsheet is something that was put together with Frank and Andrew and Georgia. I think it was something of a collective effort. But basically it looks like this. It's got a bunch of green bolded accounts on it with balances by month. And it goes, and then there's some gray ones on it, but it comes down to, so there's the biggest account that the town has is the MMDT account. That is effectively a money market fund that's run by the state that pools all the 80% of the communities in Massachusetts invest in that money in that account. And then there's some other accounts that Georgia will take us through that she has on here. But basically, the purpose of this was to get a monthly cash balance and match it with the interest income earned from each month. So on the schedule, the green ones add up to the bottom blue here. The bottom two blue is just a summary of all the green shaded accounts, because there's some gray accounts that don't go into the general fund. So what you can see is there's it ranges from 27 million up to 34, 38 million, 39 million. It fluctuates, but what I did is over here on the right, I just sort of this green column here is just the actual average for all 12 months. For fiscal 24, it's just an average of 33 million. The total income was 1.2 million. So that was a 3.8% yield. And then in the yellow one here is what's in the budget. And that is not, they've lowered the budget from last year, and it's a 2.8% yield. So I have just put in some extra numbers here just to give people a range of like what could happen with interest rates. The dilemma we have is we're trying to predict 18 months out, right? What we think interest rates are going to be. And when rates are going up, that's not as much of a problem if you're wrong, because it's good news, right? You collect more than your budget. But when we're in this environment where they've started to cut rates, the question is, how far are they going to cut them, or will they leave them, sort of where they're at for a period of time? And you get into conversations about, well, there's sort of two schools of thought revolve around whether you think we've been talking about having a recession for a couple of years now, and it hasn't happened. So if you think that we're not going to have a recession, and perhaps maybe the rates won't go down as much as people might think. They've gone down like from 5.5 now to like 4.75, I think. So maybe it'll be a little less than that. But versus if you think we're going to have a recession, that even gets to a lower rate, right? Because the Fed would take action and lower rates. So that's the dilemma we have. And I know Georgia, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you manage these accounts and the rates you get and the challenges you face with that. There's a difference between the Rockland Trust account and all the other accounts. But she'll explain that. So
Sure, so I'll.
do you want to come up here so we can make
Do you
sure?
want me to?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Hopefully it works.
So the ones that are shaded in green are the ones where the interest goes to the general fund. The ones that are shaded in gray are accounts that we hold. For example, the first gray account is a cultural council account. By law, any interest earned on that account has to go back to the cultural council. So those few 8 or 10 accounts, they keep the interest. All the other green accounts is interest that goes to the general fund that is used as part of our local receipts when we set the tax rate. The two biggest accounts that we have are the MMDT account, which is what I like to call my big savings account. That's the money that I have devoted to put aside. I've told myself I'm not spending it, put it aside because it's going to grow. It's a pooled investment, as Steve mentioned. 80% of the communities invest in MMDT. So whatever the ending balance is, for example, the ending balance, I think, as of last Friday was $31 billion. We get a portion of all of that in our interest earnings. Interest on that as of Friday was 4.83. Today at the close of business was 4.79 or 4.81. The second account that we earn interest on, the biggest account, is our operating account, which is at Rockland Trust. So any money that comes in over the counter, whether it's your tax revenue, whether it's a building fee, whether it's school lunch, athletics, all those receipts go to Rockland Trust. Those are our daily depository receipts. As a treasurer, I live by 3 words: safety, liquidity, and yield. And I truly believe that that is the order. It has to be safe, it has to be liquid, and then your yield, which is your interest rate. We are governed by a set of guidelines as to what we can invest in. Everything is pretty much a money market account. We have been fortunate due to the economy with 2 CDs that we've managed to invest at 5%. That has greatly increased our interest earnings for this fiscal year 24. Those CDs have matured. They have now been renewed to mature in April of 25. However, the rate is much lower than 5%. The rates don't change as much from month to month, but it also, you're really earning interest on your 2 biggest accounts, your MMDT and your Rockland account. That's really where all the money is. So we're talking about all of the money that we invest, but on the flip side, we pay a lot of money in expenses every month. For the month of October, we had $8.1 million in expenses, which is your vendor warrants and your payroll. And it can vary between 6 million, 8 million. It really depends whether we have debt that's due, whether we're paying a health insurance bill. So you're taking the money in, but you're also, expensing the funds as well. So in estimating what investment income would be for fiscal year 26, knowing that there's going to be another meeting in December, which could possibly result in another rate cut. Again, as Steve said, we don't have a crystal ball. We're trying to figure out what we're going to earn in interest for the next 18 months, which is very difficult to do. The town has invested in MMDT. MMDT has performed very well. So in coming up with our investment income estimated number, we're pretty much using the interest that we've earned in the past in MMDT and assuming that that's going to stay at a constant level.
Would that be a pretty high level relative to we think the rates will be going?
It's a pooled investment. They have $31 billion.
Yeah. So, okay, so
It takes a while, if rates go down 1 month, it takes a while for them to feel a rate decrease. And their decreases are not, like 5 basis points.
But they're, it's not, it's more like a 2 or 3 month adjustment period, right? So it's not
Yes.
18 months, right?
Right.
So,
And their CDs mature at different times, so you really wouldn't feel, you wouldn't feel it for a few months. Most of your other banks are not giving you the interest rate that you're getting at MMDT. Your unit bank accounts are our online accounts, which is where our taxpayers, our water and sewer users, our school department, that's our online function where people, have the opportunity to go and pay online. I call those my convenience accounts. Those are for my taxpayers. Your depository account is your Rockland. Every quarter I get, an $8 million wire that comes in for real estate taxes. So again, you need to have it liquid, at the same time as being safe. Another issue, that I'm not sure if any of you are aware of, and I've spoken to Steve about it many times, is, a lot of these banks, the FDIC, DIF, a lot of these banks, after 250, they are not securing your accounts. So you have 2 options. You can collateralize the account, which would mean that you're going to get a lower interest rate, or you enroll in the IntraFi program. The IntraFi program is something that I have opted out of for a few reasons. You give the bank the authority to invest anything in excess of 250 at their discretion. So for a couple of months at one of the accounts, I did enroll in it and then I enrolled out. We had money in the Bank of Montana, in Tennessee, and $250,000 increments. I, as a treasurer, just did not feel comfortable doing that. For me, that's just, if I don't know where my money is, I just don't feel comfortable with it, or I shouldn't say my money. I do refer to it as mine, but it's not mine. So we do collateralize our Rockland account because that is our main depository account. So that is collateralized. However, due to the relationship that the town has with the bank, our collateralized rate is much higher than the collateral interest rate. So we're very fortunate on that.
and that's something that she worked hard to negotiate.
Yes.
So that's gonna help us, I think.
That's gonna help us meet.
Yeah.
I think our interest revenue.
Yeah.
That we're projecting for 26. So,
How do you collateralize that?
I'm sorry,
How do you go about collateralizing?
the bank collateralizes it.
They go, okay, I was gonna
Yes.
say.
Yes, the bank collateral, but again, it's at a lower interest rate. But what I've done with most of the other ones is, when it hits over the 250, I try to move it out, try to move it to another bank. Just to, keep the
Okay.
funds safe.
So, I mean, I think when you look at this, you look at sort of I see there's some conservatism built in here, which I think is good, given the uncertainty we're faced with. Because we don't want to be in a situation where we over budget this and don't achieve that number. So,
And if we do that, we would have to raise it on the recap.
yeah.
Another issue too is, we aren't anticipating any bond issues, which would mean I wouldn't have any extra money to invest. So that unfortunately, if you did have that, that would, increase your interest earnings. We wouldn't have that to do. I know for a few, many other communities, this really doesn't affect Medfield, but a lot of other communities who have numerous tax titles, the tax title law has recently changed. We recently auctioned a home that the town owned on Causeway Street 3 or 4 weeks ago, where the new rule now states that you have to return all excess equity to the previous homeowner. For a lot of the bigger towns who have hundreds of tax titles, that's going to seriously affect their cash balance because they're not going to be keeping that revenue. For us, it really doesn't matter. But in talking with some of the other treasurers, you know, if they're not bringing that revenue in, they're also not earning the interest there too. So, but it doesn't affect us. But
Yeah.
you also have to think of all of the other revenue that comes in, that increases your interest.
Are there any questions that anyone here has or comments or that, well, we have Georgia here.
Is the average monthly balance consistent from what we see? I mean, other than
It's
incremental
pretty
growth,
consistent,
but pretty
yes.
consistent?
I mean, every 6 months you have your water and sewer revenue that comes in, so that increases it. It's pretty consistent. Usually August, September, we'll get some Chapter 90 money in for projects that we're getting reimbursed for. But for the most part, it's consistent.
And so that in the future planning, it'd be consistent with this kind of a trend and this relative number, the 34, 35 million, 30.
Assuming you're not increasing your operating budget. Yes.
Because the expense changes and the operating budget, they're fairly
Yeah, I mean, there's,
neutral, right?
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we've, you know, in my analysis here, I've assumed an average cash balance similar to the actual 24.
Right, that was my question.
So that's conservative, right? Because we're going to get more tax revenue in,
Sure.
especially over the next 18 months. So it'll be higher than what 2024 was. So there'll be a little more income generated there. I think with this Rockland, you know, change that Jordan negotiated, that will be helpful. And she has proven an adept manager of this money, maximize the return.
We've also, I mean, we have a 99.8 collection rate.
Yeah.
In our property taxes.
Yeah.
And that's because it's bank generated.
So 68% of
We're a
the
wealthy
taxes come
community.
in through escrow. Yes. That's the $8
Banks,
million
yeah.
wire that it's.
Yeah.
So I mean, I look at this and I say, well, even if we're, you know, let's say if we budget this at the 933, that's like a 2.8% return. You know, if it goes down to say 2.6, you know, that's like another $80,000 difference. So it's not,
Those are the.
yeah, those are the numbers up there. So if you went down to the right at 850 instead of the 933, as income, we'd be at like a 2.6% return. So it's about an 80, you know, I mean, I can't see them getting that low, but in case it does, I think it's manageable, you know. All right.
Where do we make up for that?
Well, this one is, it's a little different than expenditures, right? Because we have to raise this on the
We have
on
to
the
raise this on
recap.
next year's recap.
Yeah. So, whereas if we're not short, we have excess of just free cash. Yeah. But we're on the expense side, we're not allowed to overspend. So that kind of is our control there. But it's a little tricky on the revenue side, budgeting this, so. I think it's conservative. I don't know what other people think. That's my view, is I think we should be okay with this?
Mhm.
You okay with that? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
How long are the CDs? What duration?
They were 6 months. The next two right now are due in April, so I did a 5 month.
5 to
which
6
is-
months.
Yeah, it varies. One of them brings in about 18,000 a month.
If you see us like, say we're into fiscal 26 and you're like halfway through the year and you see some CD rates that will get us to the budget, you, at that point, you probably would lock them in, right? So that or 9 months, whatever the period of time you needed to go out.
You need
to.
liquidity.
Or if MNDT is still up there.
Yeah.
Just dump it all in there
Yeah.
for a couple months.
Yeah.
Definitely, I can definitely keep my eye open the last quarter of the fiscal year for 26
26, yeah.
and play catch up.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Out of the local receipts.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is in local receipts,
Out
yeah,
of the 5.2.
yeah. Right, so we haven't changed that number. We're gonna keep it at the 933. If everyone's okay with that, all right. All right,
If anybody has any other questions that they think of at another time, feel free to email me anytime or stop by. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
great.
And thank you for all you do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for all you do. Yeah, appreciate it. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is interesting. Let's see, let's go back, I guess, and, everybody got this free cash analysis, right? That, the one pager. It's got all the, I think when last meeting, we had like an overview, high level of free cash. This, Andrew has, completed. By the way, have we got certified yet? We got certified. Great. Good job. Is this the earliest it's ever been certified?
Last year with.
Okay, that's great.
It was like my 2 days.
Run the ball. My numbers got very serious.
Yeah, that's great.
Know about,
Like better to be black and
know
white.
about you, right?
So this is that, everybody have this, we handed it out. It's a fairly detailed rundown. I wanted everybody to have this just so that, I mean, you could see the big items are the police. That's a 10% of the turn back. And then the interest income, or, yeah, I mean, sorry, health insurance. Health insurance was the other part of it. This is just expenditure, right? We went through the revenue. So these are, I thought this would be helpful as you go through your departments. You can see how accurate we were in the past on the budget versus how it actually came out. And you can see most of them are pretty close, within 2%. So it's a pretty there are usually reasons for the differences, you know. But that's really just, I just wanted, we're gonna spend a lot of time on it unless you guys have questions for Andrew, if he's here. He can answer them, but you know, the health insurance has a history of returning quite a bit of free cash. I think when we talk about that budget, you'll see the changes that we're gonna have there. The police was, the story there is basically unfilled positions. So we were budgeting for full staff and they were unable to achieve the you know, achieve the full budget of filling all the positions. And the rest of the stuff is, you know, small things that are just differences, all right? But as you dig down and you talk to some of your departments, it's good information to have.
Even health insurance,
Yeah,
is it funds set aside for I guess, other purposes under health insurance? Because it can't be related to the 8 or 9%, 10% increases we've seen.
Hold that question.
Okay.
Because Mr. Bozell is going to take us through that,
Okay.
along with Frank. We have a whole presentation on it,
Oh.
the budget, so you'll get educated on that. It's actually fairly complicated. Well, it's somewhat involved, I guess.
I'm
Right.
sure it'll come up in the departments, but the DPW in aggregate has a fairly large, almost $250,000, I think, in terms of all its departments together. Is there a reason for that last year, or was it just?
I think the biggest part of it looks to be snow and ice. That's 91,000. I think the highway department, they were down for this. They were, yeah, so the highway, 50 or 60,000 of that on the highway is staffing, I want to say. And also we had a mechanic position that sat empty for a little bit as well, that was filled. And then snow and ice, can't cut that. Well, you
Right.
can, you're not supposed to.
Right, no, I understand that, yeah. But like in cemetery and solid waste, I mean, each one of them have the, like I said, if you look, you mean, because all those departments, highway, snow and ice, street, equipment repair, maintenance. I mean, in the aggregate, it's almost $250,000.
And most of it's related to not being able to fill positions.
One big number there that on health insurance, that 649,000, that was because we had the 11 months, we had the 1 month.
Right.
What goes off, so that accounted for a significant that difference. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and the school is a one-line item here.
Yeah,
It's
83.
That's the 83.
Can I just ask a clarifying question about it?
Why is it's 0 there and then 5.5%? 5.55% on the bottom,
Zero where?
like midway through.
Oh, well, that just means that, oh, I see, up here. I don't know the question to that. Line item, there's a line item in the middle called school. I mean, it's got 0. It's obviously that's not their budget. I don't know what that is. It's just a typo maybe, or maybe it's just school. It might be the vocational school assessment goes with that.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
That's what it is.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's these are all the, the details.
It's good to have this.
We turn back some of the reserve fund. You see some years we didn't spend anything in the reserve fund, very little. 120 back in 2020, 126,000. We turned back 2021, 108. Last year was 24. We had a lot of unexpected expenditures come through, but so it's, as you go through your budgets, it's a good tool to have, I think. Each of the areas. Okay. So let's see, the next item was probably health insurance. You want to talk about health insurance, Ed? Frank, why don't you come up
Yeah,
here? So,
Frank and I met a few times on this and worked through the numbers. I think at the end of it, we need to talk about the how much we should have as a buffer, because that's obviously you saw how big those returns were on that surprise schedule, how much free cash we've generated. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to try and make that as tight as possible. But that's gonna, so we'll have to talk as a group, whether we think we have enough of a buffer in there at the end. But why don't you walk us through that? You want to walk us through?
Sure,
We
so,
did it because
yes,
they could do
so basically what we did was, we look at the
does everybody have the sheet? It's
it. One page,
it's a one pager. It's after.
this will be conscious of.
Yeah, yeah, it's after the budget. So it looks like this.
So basically, we get our bills from our health insurance provider every month. And In about a week or so, I'll start bothering Andrew about our next bill. So toward the end of the month, I start my estimate what we get. Did a bill for Maya, which has all of our headcount data listed out by plan. So that's the table on the top left portion of this one pager. It lists out all the individual plans, the family and individual options, and then these numbers under the November 24 row, those are the amount of employees or retirees that are enrolled in those plans. So I know this question has come before. So for instance, on a family plan, it doesn't mean that there's one family of 18 people or two families of 9 people. It's 18 FTEs who they and all of their family members may be on.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, so it's on our family, the family plan numbers.
Mhm.
It's the amount of employees enrolled in a family plan. It does not include their family members, basically.
Mhm.
So it's not the total amount of people who are covered on a family plan. It's just if me and my wife and my kids are on a family plan, I can still count as one.
Got it.
So the box to the right, sort of in the middle there, are the current rates for all of those plans, except for the bottom 3, which we can talk about in a minute. But in that center table there, you'll see the monthly rate for each of those plans. Obviously, there's 12 months in a year, so we multiply that by the amount of months that we need to cover the employees for. The town share for each of those plans that the town is responsible for paying for. So for the high deductible plan, the town covers 62% of the deductible, and the employee covers 38%. Then you have your annual cost there in that row to the right. You'll see all the town share percentages vary by plan. When you get to the bottom of that chart, you'll see that it's the MedX plans, which are someone is going to have to do a better job than I can explaining what the MedX is. It's basically like a bridge plan for retirees who are on medic.
Supplemental.
Supplemental.
Supplemental. I just learned all about it.
Yeah, so it's the supplemental plan. So you'll see at the top of the middle chart there, it says rates effective 7/1/2024, except MedX. So the MedX plans actually change on the calendar year. So those rates are set by those are set in January, but we actually just approved, or the select board just accepted the rate that we were basically told we had to, say in the matter. After a few years of 0% increases, actually this past year that the increase was 6%. 2 years prior to that, it was 0% increase. This year it's a 20% increase that's being passed on. So this $434 a month is actually the rate that will go into effect in like 6 weeks. So we'll use that number basically as a number to budget for the first half of fiscal 26. So the MedX figures are based on the calendar year. The rest of the rates in our budget are based on the fiscal year. So there's 6 months there where they'll be gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys looks like your family and individual for the first line might have gotten reversed. Because the rate is 2,000 for the individual. I don't know if it matters. I would think it would matter if you're multiplying them,
Good
Because you're
catch. That was a good catch.
2,000 by 12 instead of by 18.
No, I'm thoroughly embarrassed. Okay.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Better to catch.
You see what he's saying, Ed, you see what he's saying?
Okay, well, the dollars are,
About 6 people times,
right,
yeah.
times the difference.
You have your spreadsheet with you? think it's gonna go the wrong way.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna go the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's more,
It carries on.
6 more people on the expensive plan.
Able to.
So it could be another 20 grand, probably, right?
Lisa, what's your thought about
Well, he's doing that. Is medics private? Is that part of our contract with,
It's, Medics is that a HMO Blue plan?
Yeah, it's through our insurance providers, through.
Yeah.
That's across the board, because the Inflation Reduction Act, pushed those costs onto the providers. Instead of them. So those those plan increases were for every, company that offers, a medic plan.
yes, and no negotiation.
We're negotiating that. We have no option on that.
So. Okay, so that brings it to 5,496. 81.
With the buffer,
Yes,
5,496.
yes.
Oh,
So-
down, so the 5,430 changes to 5,496.
Yeah.
So that's a difference of, that was higher than I thought.
You saw it carried on the other table too, right?
5,179, you're saying becomes 5,496.
No, I think he's getting down to the bottom left.
Yeah,
He's coming up with that
Left. I'm surprised that's only
five.
$60,000 difference, 66.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been a lot, because there's not that many people.
Right.
It was 6 people at 2,000 or
Yeah,
2,400.
5,496.
That's why I was trying to do it in my head, but
Okay.
does seem higher. I was thinking like maybe, because you have both.
yeah,
You have the 10% increase plus the
yeah.
6 times 2,400. That would be. I do that in my head. That's
15.
There's
48
There's two right?
times 30. 92.
It's
14,400. Yeah. How did we get as much as you're talking about here, Frank?
So I do,
You're going up 60,000,
yeah,
66, I guess.
there's also the increase of. The true increase is. You have to take into account that there's the 10% increase off each of those numbers.
right.
So,
Well, you should use you should use the far right-hand boxes.
Yeah, 6 times
2,400.
2,400 times 6.
Yeah. Right.
There's a difference of 6 people, right?
Well,
Did you
Yeah.
lower, let me ask you this, did you lower,
we have to take.
then you gotta do less than 920.
did you lower the cost for the line item for family because now it's only 12? Maybe you didn't just change that.
You got,
Do you know what I'm
you
saying?
gotta change both.
You have to
Yeah.
change both lines.
It's 4 lines total. Right?
Well, I think it's just,
It's just the family and the.
well, yeah,
No, but it's
yeah,
twice,
yes, yeah. But I
Yeah.
think this, the last one is just taking this times 10%, but yeah, you're right.
Because these two are swapped and this are swapped.
No, I think the second one is.
It's got 26 here, so how can that have a lower?
Yeah, I
number?
think it's only 9,000. Can go back and run the numbers and get you a new sheet. Yeah. Thought about
Oh, yeah, okay. So Frank, is it can we ask you a question? Is, on the second plan, the Blue Care elect preferred options. You've got 18 family and 26 individuals, which they could be, the rates seem to align with the family and individual, but the question was, does it make sense that there's more individuals than family there? And I think that's probably, it's probably right if there's like teachers that aren't
Right.
married or something, yeah. Or they might not opt to be on a family plan. Okay. So it's probably just that first.
How many of the 616 are current FTEs, like current employees? Roughly.
Roughly, so there are some retirees
So you
that
can,
are not on
you
the
can
managed plans. So
but the big number, if you just deduct the 300 of the medics,
it's probably
About
around
half.
300.
Yeah, so it's about 300.
yeah. Yeah. So Frank, you double check those numbers just to make sure
Yeah.
that we've, does it make sense that, it would go up 66 grand if it's just we're changing the rate on six employees, right?
But you're changing the rate on the other 12 too.
Yeah,
Down.
yeah.
I did it.
Should be.
Should be in that, yeah.
Should be in that.
Well, let's just go with
It's
that.
fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna run the number. Just-
We gave you sheet tomorrow.
Yeah. But it's,
Well, the difference between the 2,400 and the 922,
that's,
it's about,
right.
14, it's like $1,400
Yeah.
times 6. That's the net change, right?
Six is, yeah, it's only $8,800.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so it's not gonna be a big number.
I think that the issue or the question is the buffer. You can see the buffer there is 175,000.
Yeah,
And if you looked at the last couple of years and, whatever the buffer was, we looked at how much we actually used. You had your base budget and then said, well, how many life events did we actually have where people added or subtracted from the plan? And we used in 24, 184,000 over and above the base budget. And 200,000 this year, 25. So we're putting in 175. So it's almost right on the money.
yeah,
It's not, that we shouldn't have, or if history repeats itself, we won't have that big turnback. We won't have any turnback, free cash.
right.
So it makes us ask the question, do we want to increase that a little bit more? Do you think we should, we'd have to take it out of the reserve, Warrant Committee reserve? We had some, some significant differences.
Yeah,
So I don't know whether we had this discussion a little bit. Do we increase the Warrant Committee reserve and have the buffer there, a little bit of a buffer there, or do we put more than 175,000 in this line?
We're saying in the last two prior years, it was a little bit more than 170.
Yes. Yeah, 184 and 200.
200, it got as high as 200.
Yeah.
But 184, and you're gonna reduce this 175 by 8, right?
No, it's gonna be added.
So we increase it by
It'll be
8.
the other way
Oh,
around. It's,
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know
it's
what people think about that.
such a big number.
And,
knows?
some of the assumptions though are, the purpose of that buffer. Frank, why don't you explain why we have that buffer?
So throughout the year, one of the reasons that I ask Andrew every month for the bill from Maya that provides the head count by plan is because it fluctuates every year. Or excuse me, the head count fluctuates by plan every month. So when we have open enrollment, but also if there are qualifying events, if there are new employees that start, if there are new employees that leave, if there are people that retire, and then those positions you backfill, changes constantly. So that's why we need that buffer to sort of account for changes up, hopefully not, but in most cases they're not. Our account will go up during the fiscal year. If you were to look at sort of big picture over the course of the past few years, it's slowly trending upward. That's why we need that buffer to account for the activity, enrollments, unenrollments, switching from individual to family.
Life event type things that happen.
It has been the mix because, yeah, as we went back and we looked in the month of January from 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and looked at the differences, and you had some big swings from 19 to 20 and 20 to 21 a little bit, but then after that, 22, 23, 24, 11 people. You know,
Yeah.
change. So it's pretty consistent. That 600,
If you
a
had,
little over 600.
I mean, what's an individual, cost for
The highest plan would be about 20,000.
20 grand? So if they had 10 of them, that's 200 grand.
Yeah, you're gonna have some lots, you know, pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
And the spouses playing. They gotta-
I mean, you know, I think, you know, leaving it where it is, I think that, we do have the warrant committee reserve, which we
Right.
increased this year to, I think it's up to 175, is that right?
5, yeah.
175. Um. You know, I mean, we could add another 25 to this to make it 200. Leave it in the budget.
Yeah, because we only gave back this year 24,000. This past year for 24, and the free cash.
The warrant committee
Under the
reserve.
warrant
Yeah.
committee
Well, there
reserve.
was a lot of,
Yeah, there was a lot of things, yeah.
they use. So
Yeah.
why don't we up this then?
Well, haven't we been giving back like turnbacks of $300,000 a year?
For the reserve?
No, from the health insurance.
Oh, health insurance. Yeah, we were talking about the
The other
reserve.
thing
Yeah.
about the buffer is
Right, but why would we increase the reserve if we're turning back the main thing?
We're not gonna have that return on the health insurance.
Health insurance is not
Hopefully
gonna
it's
be
gonna
as big.
budgeted pretty darn close to what it actually.
Okay, here's the history that they're missing.
Yeah, the
The
history.
buffer went from 10%
Mhm.
2 years ago to 5% last year. Now it's at 2.5%? Is that way, or 3%?
A little over
3%.
3.3.
3%. So
Mhm.
that's why we had those big,
Got
the buffer was big and we've slowly kind of narrowed it down over the last couple of years. So maybe we go with 200 here.
I would think so.
Okay. Got that, Frank? And then, so. All right. So while we're on the health insurance. By the way, any more questions on health insurance?
No, I just want to add though that you don't need to apologize. You've got a lot of numbers here. That's why we're here. So,
Yeah.
you know, this is not a test or a quiz. It's a collaborative. So
No, it's,
Oh,
it's what we're here to do. So
yeah.
you put a lot of numbers together. So nice job, Emily.
So if you go back to this guidance, budget guidance, document. Last time we met, this was at 3.7%. Was the bottom line increases for school and town departments was
Mhm.
3.7. And we had highlighted, in yellow, state aid, local receipts, health insurance and pension. So the health insurance number, we changed it to agree with his spreadsheet here. And that brought it down to 5,430. 5 million, that brought it up, excuse me, it increased it. From the prior meeting, it increased it by about 100 and what was it, about 140,000, 120,000, something like that. So that brings our guidance down to 3.5%. Okay. And that might go down, well, it will go down slightly more now because we're adding another 25 or 30,000, whatever it comes out to. So I just wanted to point that out, that has changed. Okay. Everything okay on the health insurance? And we move on to pension. Pension. Okay, so if you remember, see if I can pull that up. I think it's this one. So in your packet, I think it's right after the healthcare sheet is, and I'm going to ask Christine to help explain this one. You want to come up closer? Yeah, it's quite a story, but so I think I had shared with you some emails about what's going on with the county, Norfolk County Retirement System. And you know, Christine and Frank they actually went to the meeting where they sort of announced this wonderful news to all the towns and communities. And
A
so,
little hostile.
yeah. So anyway, I'll let you explain kind of.
So we have been operating with the assumption that would be fully funded by 2029. Over the last 3 years or so, several of the town administrators in Norfolk County have questioned that 2029 date. And that was because several letters from PARAC, which oversees Norfolk County retirement, also questions their funding. As well as several of the bond rating agencies questioned the values that they were using in the actuarial study from Norfolk County. Norfolk County held fast and true that we were on track for the 2029 study. Then their actuarial retired. And there was some staff turnover, and then we found out just a few weeks ago that that funding schedule would be past the 2029. Based on the new actuarial and the new studies that they were doing. So they gave us basically less than a week's notice, I think was the first notification they gave us, less than a week's notice to attend the meeting and see what they had done for their study. That's the meeting that Steve was just referring to. Everybody left pretty upset that they didn't have a lot of confidence in the numbers. Everybody went back, started working on them, and the town of Westwood showed that there were some significant mistakes made in Westwood's numbers, which caused everybody to ask the county to take a step back, have another meeting to review, which they did. They held their vote. And they have now voted for 2026, what our pension funding amount will be. They're going to go back and review further and then give us what our schedule will be for the remainder up until 2032.
Yeah, that's the Reader's Digest version, I guess. That's the,
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot more detail, but so we're sort of in this limbo period where we got to put a budget together. They probably won't have the final that 2026 they've committed to, I guess.
Yes.
So they've committed to the assessment for 2026, but they won't have the outer years assessments for another couple months, 2-3 months. And we won't, they're talking about fully funding this now to 2035. So it's been pushed out 6 years. And when they first came up with the assessment schedules, they were front loading it all into like the first 4 years. People were saying, why are you doing that? Why not just smooth it out over the full 6 years? Because we were getting crazy assessment numbers for some of those years. And so that's their mission. Christine signed on to a letter of all the town administrators to task them with going back and doing this the right way, take the time and get it accurate. So So what I did, some of you might remember this spreadsheet, but to some people, it might be a little new. But this is our the pension reserve, okay? So the way this works is we get an assessment from the Norfolk County Retirement System. And we have this money, this pool of money that not all towns have, but Medfield has this stabilization fund that its sole purpose can be used to help offset the assessments that come from Norfolk, okay? So the principles we've used to try to manage that have been to try to be conservative, because we always had this doubt about whether they really were gonna get to 2029.
Right.
And we just wanted to use as little as we really needed early on and leave the rest of it until later when we had more certainty what was gonna happen. And so, so this spreadsheet just basically kind of takes the balance as of September 30th in that reserve fund, which was 3.3 million. And then it's sort of you can see like the transfers in this middle column. So this is what we in 2025 we took out 337,000 from this reserve fund. So what I've done is I've taken the 26, they revised the 26 assessment. It was higher than this, based on their old projections. So they revised that down. And I've taken out just enough so that the net is like 2.5% increase. So that's how this is managed. The problem is that
It runs out of money.
it runs out of money in 2030 or 2020, 30, 31. And that's because these assessments, you can see they have this schedule where it goes from 4 million, 4.3, gets up to 4.5, and then it drops down to 1.4 million. In these last 4 years, this is what we asked them. They went back to them and said, why don't you smooth this out? Why are you forcing it all in the first 5 years? And so, so hopefully, my hope is that they will come back with, but this is the only thing, this was the last thing they left us, was this schedule. So hopefully in 3 months, we'll get a different schedule that will smooth this out so that we'll have a higher balance that will be able to earn interest a little longer, be able to take out less in some of these earlier years. And I don't know, I won't know till we get the numbers, but hopefully it'll last a few more years and we'll be in that situation. So, but for 2026, this is the number. So what this effectively does is like, this is the one that was used for the prior guidance. We had a 3.6 assessment and a 432 transfer. This is a 3.4 assessment and a 305 transfer. So I've just lowered the transfer amount equal to the amount of that the assessment went down, so it nets to 0. So the budget isn't affected by it. You understand that? Yeah. So for 26, it will be this 3.4 and the transfer out, because we budget them in 2 separate line items in the spreadsheet. The assessment goes in the pension one, and then the transfer goes in other available funds. But I've just offset them so they net to 0. The impact of this change is netting to 0. Is that, and you look confused?
Oh, no,
No, you-
it's about that. I
Okay.
was curious, when we established this reserve fund and how we funded it, because that's so much money.
Yes, yes. Well, it goes back to our former town administrator, God bless him. I think it was what, in the 80s?
It was in the early 80s.
He put $10,000 in this account.
He bought Apple.
Yeah, he started it with $10,000 and then.
He never took money out of it.
Money out.
And, would always put a little bit in,
Yeah.
It went back so far, I think they couldn't find the records, but on how much, each year he would put in, but
Okay, that's new to me. Okay, thank you.
yeah. So we're very fortunate that we have this, because a lot of towns don't have this. And that you can imagine the reaction they had when they got their assessments.
Yeah, that was the part that was so concerning because it was triggering, overrides for probably at least half of the Norfolk County towns that were there.
Yeah,
Just this alone. So that's why there was such tremendous outrage that we had such short notification. Because we're all putting our budgets together now. So this was, kind of at the
Yeah.
end of the line for us. So.
and this is one of the reasons why I'm a big advocate of our financial policies, to have it in writing, because we, Christine kind of the former administrator did things in his own little way and didn't necessarily write things down or explain things. So we went a few years not even knowing this account was there. So that's a reason why we should have financial policies written down.
Used to be on a need to know basis. We didn't need to
We didn't
know.
need to know. Great.
So the open question, or one of the open questions is how this assessment will be spread.
Yeah,
On the
in those
future
future
years.
years, right.
Yeah.
26 is locked in supposedly.
Yes.
It better not change it.
But so have they given an explanation? Maybe it's soon to talk about that, but I mean, have they given an explanation as to why it's front-end loaded?
No, that was part of.
I think what the actuary, there was a new actuary came in and he didn't have a lot of time to do this, so he shortcut it so that he kind of changed some assumptions of the old actuary through that early date, and then he added his own, it was not done the right
It's not
way.
the way to run it.
No. That's why it was separated like that. It was like,
To keep it
I think
as close to 29 as possible.
I think he wanted to show, I didn't have anything to do with this.
Yeah, so he didn't want, that's probably exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So
So,
that don't work, that doesn't, well, I can't.
no.
All right, that's great.
So we won't know our assessment amounts either of them, we have to redo.
We,
26 will know.
Right,
26,
but
we
for
know.
future, like, we won't know if this fund is actually gonna cover.
We won't know that for a few months, probably. I mean, I can rerun this when we get the new ones.
Yeah, okay.
But,
As well-
the one question, I don't know if it got answered, because it might help with, we're gonna add these extra costs for healthcare, was if we do the one-time payment,
Yeah, we don't have an answer. on
there's
that.
a savings. You get a
That was
discount.
already calculated in there for
You put more in your assessment.
the 2.5% prepayment.
No, I think we're waiting to
Okay.
hear.
So, I mean, if we're able to get confirmation on that, that might help before December.
Right.
That might help offset some of these increases
Mhm.
from the healthcare budget. So
Yeah, we had.
the 2.5%, if you pay it all at once instead of in two payments,
Oh,
we've been paying it all at once and getting this 2.5% discount.
right.
But they haven't, things got so messed up this year,
Right.
they haven't come out with what they're gonna do on that, so.
My trust is about this big,
Right.
so I don't want to make any mistakes.
That's 2.5% each year they give you for paying all at once.
Yeah,
Early payment discount.
yes.
Could I just ask some unrelated question? This pension reserve fund, is that, like, where is that money? Like, right now? Is that in an investment account?
It's in a separate,
That,
it's not on the sheet that you looked at
No.
today. That
Okay.
was all just operational type stuff.
Mhm.
There are other accounts that you'll see, she does an analysis of all the other accounts. It's considered a stabilization fund, so it's like,
Right, oh,
it's
okay.
like our general stabilization is a separate account. The municipal building stabilization,
Sure,
capital
yeah.
stabilization, this is considered stabilization fund. And it has its own accounting, all the interest stays in the account and all that stuff, so.
Okay,
And it's
And then-
invested differently than the operating accounts. The operating accounts are very liquid,
right,
short term.
yeah, that makes sense.
This has a little more of a longer term horizon on how it gets invested. I think it's in the PRIT, is it PRIT? PRIT, yeah. Or maybe it's in bonds. I'm not sure how she invests this one, but
I'd have to double check.
Other assets on the balance.
We don't have a need to take it all out in a year, so
Yeah,
that's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. They
It's
just
taking time.
tie the circle.
Good question,
Yeah,
good
no,
question, yeah.
it's- Close the loop. Very good.
There was a question I had in 2019. This money's where? What? We have what?
Anything else on this then? All right. So why don't we, let's talk about, okay, so given this change, drastic change in how pension is gonna get handled, where we went from this environment of thinking by 2029, we were gonna have this fully funded, we we're gonna have this big windfall in our operating budget. Now that's not gonna happen until 2035. I thought it was important to revisit our policy on OPEB. So in your package is there's a marked up version of the post-employment benefit policy. And it really just updates it for, under the retirement system that, it's updates the funding date to 2035. And then talks about the changes that they've made in assumptions that's causing it to be pushed out to 2035. But if you remember in our OPEB policy, now OPEB is, just to remind everybody, OPEB is other post-employment benefits. It's basically health insurance for retirees, teachers and municipal employees, all retirees. So this is the health insurance before they go on to Medicare. Right? And so you could see that the prior plan was that if we got to 2029, that the funding of this historically was 500,000 a year, escalated by 5% a year, funded from free cash. Okay. And so the plan was when we got to 2029, we were going to, because we had a $3 million room in the operating budget, we were going to put this into the operating budget and not fund it with free cash anymore. But that date's been pushed out fairly long now. So it makes sense to just revert to our old policy, which was 5% a year funded from free cash. And then when we get within 3 years of whenever this final funding date is, we'll reevaluate this policy and think if we need to change it. That's really all this does. Okay.
Is this employee benefit fund the percentage of that medics plan?
So this is for, okay, so this is money that's going into a trust fund. Okay, it's not being spent yet. It's just accumulating.
Okay.
Because there's a liability the town has promised retirees. I mean, we talked about this at the last meeting. Something like if you're employed before a certain date, you got promised certain benefits on healthcare.
Oh, okay. This is
The newer employees have a different deal, but the older people got promised a certain percentage of their healthcare that the town would pick up. And so in retirement, and so there's a liability related to that. It's actually the largest liability the town has.
yes, okay.
It's, I think, almost $30 million. And so we have been putting money into this trust fund. I think it's got, I can't remember. Do you remember how much is in the trust fund? I want to say like, is it 12 million or something? Maybe not that much. I don't know. Yeah, it might be 8 million. Some towns, have, there's no requirement, like we said, the policy says, there's no requirement to fully fund this liability by a certain date, like there is with the pension. The pension state has said you have to fund this with by 2040 or 2035. With this OPEB, they basically said, you know, there's no requirement, but in my opinion, smart towns have tried to put money into these trust funds because they know that eventually this is going to become a big expense, right? And so the theory is that at a certain point, you'll be able to take that cost out of the trust fund and it won't be in the operating budget anymore. You've invested it and it's grown and all that stuff. If you delay that investment in accumulating those assets, you know, in my opinion, you're sort of shifting that liability to future residents of the town. You know, and we've made this promise over the last 20 years to employees. So, you know, I think we have to put something in this every year. And so anyway, that's all this is. This is just a whole a change back to the old policy really on OPEB. To say we're going to just do the 5% a year, which means that on our free cash, we will increase the use of free cash. Will increase that 551 by 5%.
Is the 551 number, which fiscal year was that, or is that just?
That was for 25, fiscal
okay.
25. So in fiscal 26, that'll go up by and so that's OPEB. And that's the financial management policies.
And I think just to emphasize what you said in terms of the discipline that the financial policy provides, you know, is very important that this continues in that discipline. I mean, that you memorialize that because, you know, to your point, and a number of these, you know, that discipline is really important to carry forward.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I know Peter's not here, but I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about the school building committee meeting. I know you attended it, right?
Sure it is.
Well, they voted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was me against the rule.
And you won.
No, no,
That was a fair fight. You were against
25-1. But no, I mean, it's still contend what I talked to you about before is you know, assuming we get into the MSBA program, we have to conduct a feasibility study. And in the feasibility of the study, you look at the locations, which is Wheelock and Dale, and you decide what's the best for the kids, what meets the needs of the curriculum. And last time it was Wheelock. This time we've decided it's Dale. We haven't done the feasibility study. We voted to spend our time and attention on Dale. And it's putting the cart before the horse. So I just think it's flawed. I don't understand it. It's not the way it should be done. But you know, they did a survey. The survey definitely said of 1,000 people, Yale is where we should have the school. But it's a survey. The town should vote, not 12 members based on a survey. You know, the town has 10 or 11,000 voters, not the 1,000 that were in the survey. So, you know, personally, I don't care whether the school is at Wheelock or Dale or the Peak House, so long as they go through the process and they do it the right way. And we'll see whether that happens. Hopefully we'll get accepted. Hopefully they'll do the feasibility study in earnest, update the numbers for both systems, talk to the superintendent, make sure that the school committee is involved, and let, you know, let everything fall where it may, you know.
Yeah.
If Dale turns out to be better than Wheelock, terrific. Let's go with Dale. But let's go through the process and do it right. And I just think the vote on a location before you've done any homework doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I did watch the meeting. By the way, Peter did raise this issue and I know you spoke about it. And so, but I mean, I think that, you know, I think I don't want to speak for the committee, but my sense was they felt like, they've done a tremendous amount of outreach. They've had a number of, you know, forums and they had, you know, the public hearing that Ed was at, and then they've done this multiple surveys. So it's not just the one survey, they've done other surveys. And there's clearly, you know, I think, an easier path if it's Dale. Yes, that's the way I would put it. Not that people didn't prefer Wheelock, but the preference for Dale location was clearly evident in the results. And I think that, I mean, my concern all along was that, that they get ahead of this process too much, and by taking a formal vote, that, you know, the MSBA comes in and says, well, you still, you know, if we get into the MSBA and we go with the MSBA, they have a process. It's very clear in their process that for new construction, you're required to evaluate multiple sites, potential sites. And so, but I think the committee felt like they know the new construction costs are going to be essentially the same for the building, whether it's new at Dale or the other place. The difference is going to be site costs. In the last go around, those were pretty high for the Wheelock site, given some, you know, some site costs that had to be incorporated in that. So the committee, I think, felt like they kind of knew that going in, and they wanted to kind of nail down this decision early on so that they could move forward. The risk is that that the MSBA makes them go through the feasibility, which, you know, and they're going to have to do, and that they will have to, if the results come out different than what they expect, they'll have to have a process to decide, and who knows what that process will yield, right? They'll have to have a decision that they'll go through to decide which location, given all the pros and cons, like they did
Just
last
like they
time.
did last time.
And so, you know, they could have some egg on their face if they change their mind, I guess, because of some
Right.
facts that they know in a year from now or whatever they finish
Right.
the feasibility fund. So,
The last time, as I recall, Wheelock was slightly less expensive than Dale
well, I think it was,
total, grand total.
You know,
in new construction, no, I don't think it was that much.
I-
They were pretty close.
They were close. They were
And,
very close,
and
right.
there was higher, site costs though, for the Wheelock
Yeah.
site. For new construction,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I watched the video too, and I mean, the Zoom too, and you know, I give you a lot of credit. It just, you articulated that position and, you know, in a good, honest way. You know, I think in fairness to the committee, you know, they're in a tough position, you know, and they got to move forward. And I think that I don't think they did it in a hasty way. I think the survey, the survey results were, as I mentioned, there were preferences for Wheelock, but the preferences were generally, if we don't do Wheelock, I won't do it. It was more of you know,
I
they
could
kind of
go-
put
I
it
could
in,
live with
I could
either
go
one.
either way. I prefer Wheelock, but I could go
Yeah.
either way. And I think that's where that's how the majority built up, you know. I think that, you know, Mike Weber, having been on the committee before, indicated that, you know, he was confident that the costs were going to be pretty not gonna be substantially different.
Well, everything will be
Yeah.
relative.
Yeah, it's gonna be
close, right.
relatively close, right? I think the big question that we'll have is, the question on the build rental. And that's a cost analysis they really haven't gone through. But
Right. Right.
that's not really in that. And I think they got some indication, I thought at the meeting that, the MSBA, wouldn't penalize them for making an early decision or a preemptive decision on that. It was something.
I think Mike Weber made the comment because Peter asked him. And he said he was 99% sure that this was okay to do.
Yeah, I mean, it may
With
be,
MSBA,
I just don't
yeah.
think it's, I
So,
just think that you're building a school for 50 years. And your highest priority is to make it the best school for the kids.
yeah,
I don't care where it is.
Yeah, right, but I think the fact of the matter is, we all went through this.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that all that information was out there, and a decision was made. That if it's not a Dale, we're not gonna vote for it,
Exactly.
and they're in the
Some
position,
people.
yeah, well, the majority,
Enough.
enough people,
Enough to-
not
to
even the
not get to
majority.
2/3.
It was enough people not to get to 2/3, so I think the charter for this group. I'm not, I don't defend them because they've done a great job to date, is to get a school built.
Right.
And I think that's the decision they made. So I mean, I'm not sure where we are as from the Warrant Committee perspective, I just would say that they're on the track that says, we gotta get a school built and let's find the path that's gonna get us there.
Right.
And if
Yeah, I
it's,
guess my only, but you're right, they gotta get a school built, just make it the best one for the.
that's gonna be the school. It's gonna,
That's
the
gonna be-
difference
this the
is,
best one
it's
for their kids, that's terrific,
Right.
vote for it if it's the Peacock.
not gonna be an elementary
Yeah.
campus.
yeah.
But it's gonna be the school.
Yeah, no, like I mean, but hopefully they'll do that, Ed.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hopefully they'll do
I
that.
hope so.
Yeah.
Well, sure they will.
do
I
that.
hope they build a new one at Dale and it's just terrific.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think that's what they're gonna do. They will.
I know not to complicate things, but I guess I could talk about this because it's within 48 hours we found out that basically I sent around that email about the park and rec little
Yeah.
situation. So, they have pretty much decided they can't go back in that building. And so they have a short-term problem and they have the long-term problem they've had for a while. So the short-term one is what do they do in the interim? And
Where do you locate them? Where are they?
Right now,
All over
I
the
hope
place.
they're all home.
they were in
But I mean, where are
they were in the
working?
Warrant Committee room.
Yeah,
Oh, the Warrant
and
Committee.
they.
We had a meeting there tomorrow. We had to move.
Katie's done a great job of working with all the groups in town. So they're doing some programs at the UCC. She's partnering with Council on Aging. So we've got things covered in the short term, but we still need to figure out what the plan is.
That's a big dilemma. I mean, they run such a huge summer program
Yeah,
and there's no building happening, right? So
right.
So-
The short-term problem is a real,
it's just a big source.
they're gonna have to look for lease options, I guess, or because there's not a lot of space in the town buildings.
No.
Yeah. they come-
But, I think the long-term problem, there might be an opportunity I think I mentioned this last meeting, like when they do look at Dale,
Exactly.
is to, maybe they build a little bigger gym, add a few more offices,
Even if they do a new school.
if they do a new school, yeah, and try to accommodate them without having a brand new building just for them, you know what I mean? It
Right.
could be part of the planning, but, so anyway, that's,
Not the space for it.
What's that?
Move that building out of the way.
Knock that one stop.
Right.
Yeah,
If they do a new school, you still have the Dale, the old Dale.
Knock it all down.
Are you back in Wheelock?
Steady goes out,
What?
yes.
Are you back in Wheelock?
No, I'm saying if they did
Yeah,
build a
the
new
front of the
school,
building,
it should be at on the back of the field over there, then they'd still have the front end of Wheelock, the part that's on.
Memorial.
Right. the front end of Dale,
The front end of Dale to use.
and then they wouldn't have a field.
That's when they knock stuff down. though.
Oh, well, I don't know.
If they
Yeah.
take the
I don't
field
know how
over,
much is the field completely gone? I don't know.
Well, I think with a new building there,
When it
yeah,
comes out.
Go out too far.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's, I guess, the school building committee, will have to, and the select board will have to figure that out. But, all right, how about the capital budget?
Oh, we had one brief meeting. Since, I think that was just the one since we all last met. Our department come and propose a new ambulance that would come out of the ALS revolving funds. It's not utilization per se. And there's some structural fire gear, so that's pretty standard to be replaced. Every so often, the police department last year came with a request for tasers. They hadn't yet made the purchase and the price went up. So they their request that we augment the amount that we had authorized for them, certain delta, to be able to cover the cost of tasers. Shocked at how much tasers cost. Other than that,
Is that a pun? Is that a pun that you were shocked?
I didn't mean to be. We had some discussion about hopefully addressing this question long-term of the sidewalks, because at the time right now, it's a request that gets made to the capital stabilization fund, but the amount that's being requested, which is, I can't find it here, but it's something on the order of 180,000, 190. Can't find it. Too late, I can try to find it right now, but it's just not enough to make a huge dent on the need. And so at some point, this is a discussion that the chair of the capital budget committee would like to have the select board talk about more dedicated funding streams for this overall sidewalk project. And we're probably at a place where the next time we meet, and I don't know when that would be, so I'm not sure that means scheduled, but the next time we meet, we begin taking notice.
Okay, good.
So there's a few things left outstanding. There were a couple of requested vehicles that were asked to go back and look at the option of possibly making that vehicle request an electric or hybrid vehicle. And a couple of this vehicle requests that maybe the committee would have wanted to see a little more scrutiny as to the rationale. These would be sort of light duty vehicles, SUVs, things like that. Overall, I think we're converging on the total package. Should be ready to take those votes the next time we meet on the majority. I should say also we got very detailed breakdown of the last $200,000-300,000 increments of total IT funding, most of which goes to the school. To be honest, to me it's a little hard to read. I've been looking at it off and on for some time. I assume that it's okay to share with this group at
Absolutely.
some point.
Okay.
Let me just make sure that I'm understanding it properly.
Okay.
Ask if I have questions before sending it to you, but it is fantastically detailed. They did a great job. I think you'd be eliminating. One of the things I'll just point out is, and to be fair, I was told this all along, but it's nice to see that it borne out by the numbers, is that, for example, in a particular year in which $300,000 were allotted, 150,000 of that went to networking hardware, actual routers and switches and whatnot, which is kind of amazing, actually. So I would have thought that a lot of that was going to software and laptops, but
Yeah.
sometimes it is. But I think if I can digest this and give you maybe both the raw data and summary, I think for that they just the raw.
Okay.
So
That'd be good.
I can get that to you.
Okay.
Detail. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it would make sense to do it at the next, it would make sense to do it next meeting, because that's when we're going to talk about the capital budget.
So I'll
Hopefully,
make sure.
you'll do the votes by then.
Well, let's see. I don't think there's a lot of controversy.
Okay, all right. Well, we have it on the agenda, so. All right, well, that's good. That's good. Do you want to update us on some information items? Maybe mention the bill before the governor now and how it impacts Medfield?
So, back in the spring, recognizing that we had an issue with funding sidewalks, we have tried every possible way to use grant funding, grant applications for sidewalks. For example, we received an earmark for Pleasant Street sidewalks that we're still trying to work through with Mass DOT what the requirements for that would be. We have the complete streets money, which just came in, which was $500,000 through Mass DOT. And then I had requested an earmark in the economic development bond bill that was just approved by the legislature. We're waiting for the governor to sign it. Included in that is $1 million earmark for the gap on the Route 109 sidewalk from Shaw to Elkhorn Street.
Shaw's.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so this is the first step. We're really excited. It was included in there. It was included as of right now. I don't know when the governor signs it, it will still be included. Then the hard part will be getting them to actually borrow the money and take it out of the bond bill. So, but at least we're in there, which is the first hurdle. So we were excited about it. And I thank you to the local delegation who really listened to us when we said that was our most important. So we're trying to fund them. It's just piecemealing them right now.
Great. Anything else you wanted to update us on?
The warrant will open tomorrow night at the select board meeting, so we'll start looking at warrant articles coming in. We have our usual standard warrant articles that we've already started to put together, our recurring warrant articles, so we'll keep you posted on those. And then the warrant is slated to close at the January 7th meeting.
So we have that at December 10th meeting? Our
You have
December
December
10th,
10th meeting.
yeah, and without, have the articles.
I'll have only have the recurring ones that we usually have, our financial ones, but we'll be happy to share.
I mean, there are some that, I don't know if you can talk about them, but there's some that we're kind of pretty sure we'll get that it'll be new, mostly zoning type.
Some zoning issues, the ADUs that passed in the housing bond bill, so we're gonna need to do a zoning article to address that issue. Planning board's working on a couple of other issues that they're deciding whether or not they're gonna bring to town meeting this year, so they're already working on those.
And then there's the stretch code update. That could be an article.
Yeah, so there's a meeting on
There's a meeting before,
December 10th.
on December 10th before our meeting. If anyone wants to come, I know you and I got invited to it, but anyone else wants to come, it's an hour before we start. No, actually, it's 5 o'clock, I think.
I think it's 5
Or 5:30.
Yeah.
5:30 to 6:30, and we start at 7. So.
Yeah, and it's just for municipal officials. They wanna first have a conversation with the municipal officials, and then they're gonna take the start having their public hearings and talk about it with residents, but they want to have the first conversation with the Department of Energy to talk to departments about it.
What's going on with Trinity?
We met with them for several hours today. We have more meetings with them tomorrow. They received $500,000 in MassWorks, which is what they requested, so that's very positive. If you look at the economic development bond bill, there's an incredible amount of money in there earmarked for MassWorks. So we're hoping that will bump up for
400
the
million.
next couple of years. Yeah, it's really large. Things are moving. They're upside. If anybody's up there, hopefully not walking your dogs. They are up there doing some remediation in some of the buildings. Yep, they're on site, doing a lot of their national historic work. So we're moving forward. Yep. Slowly, but we're working.
Forward is good.
Forward is good.
Anybody else have anything else you want to update us on? Not?
Motion to adjourn?
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.